Hello there, grumpy old fart here. A little drink of coffee to whip my whistle. I do a lot of alien abduction videos, and I found a whopper the other day. I had never heard of this before, so I figured I'd do a video on it. And it was a whole bunch of information about that, about this particular abduction. It's I had never, like I said, I'd never heard of it before, and this meets every requirement of alien abduction as far as it's got everything. It's got missing time. It's got the UFO sighting. It's got the hypnotic regression to find out what happened and blah 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 blah. It's got everything. This is at least as pronounced as the Betty and Barney Hill story. So I'm just going to jump into this. In August of 1976 in Maine, four men, Jack and Jim Weiner, Weiner, I'm going to say it's Weiner, and Chuck Rack and Charlie Foltz were doing some night fishing on the Allagash Waterway in Maine. The four men were in a canoe, and everything seemed normal. Chuck began to get the feeling that someone was watching them. As he turned around to scan the area, he saw a large, bright sphere of colored light hovering motionless and silent about 200 to 300 feet above the southeast rim of the cove. He got the others' attention, and they all saw the glowing object. They all agreed that the object had a rolling, boiling, kind of a roiling liquid appearance to it. Charlie began using a flashlight to flash and blink at the object in an attempt to communicate, kind of like Morse code or whatever. The object immediately began moving toward them, and it emitted a beam of light which engulfed the four men. The next thing the four knew, they were back at their camp on the beach. And to them, at the time, it felt like just a few minutes had passed. The object was above the water, and about 5 minutes later, it shot into the night sky and was gone. They suspected they had experienced missing time, but they would not investigate this further for another 12 years. Jim had suffered a head injury in an accident resulting in, let me try to get this right, temporalimbic epilepsy. So he had a head injury and it resulted in a condition, and he was getting regular treatments for this. And during the regular treatment for this condition, he kept having recurring nightmares that he couldn't shake. He and his three friends from the trip were all nude and in a strange, quote-unquote, strange place. They were surrounded by, quote-unquote, strange, bug-eyed humanoids. Jim would also awaken at night and find these creatures surrounding his bed. He was paralyzed during these encounters, but sometimes they would, quote, levitate him, unquote, upwards. So he wakes up in the middle of the night. It's not a nightmare. It's not a dream. These things are around his bed, and he's paralyzed. They levitate him up. So that seemed pretty common. The part that got me here was at the end, because it's one thing if a person or a couple gets abducted. This is four people being abducted simultaneously. But here's the part that got me. Through hypnotic regression, Jim and then eventually all four of them would recall a 2-hour experience wherein they were, quote unquote, mind controlled by the bug-eyed humanoids, and a series of humiliating and invasive medical examinations were perpetrated on them. Now that's pretty fairly common among UFO abductees, the medical experimentation and like that. These four all took lie detector tests, and all of them passed. Furthermore, separately, they all drew the same bug-eyed humanoids. So unless they got together and practiced this, highly unlikely. Now, Jack and Jim, evidently, had been abducted since early childhood. So it just went almost their whole lives. In 1988, Jack and his wife experienced an alien home invasion and abduction. So this continued on. Evidently, they saw a light outside. They went out to look. They saw this thing. They went back inside. praying or whatever that it was not going to happen. And next thing you know, the aliens actually came into their home. And this was all brought out under hypnotic regression. This particular incident left burn marks on his feet and other marks like the scoops. I talk about them in the alien abduction videos. Go check those out. But there's a lot of physical evidence that something did in fact happen. So we have 2 people who've been abducted their entire lives. All 4 of them get abducted at a lake. And then the abductions continue after that for the 2 men. And by the way, now Jack's wife and his family are also subject to these abductions. This was a big event. It really did happen. Lots and lots of physical evidence, and I had never even heard of this before. So I figured I'd talk about it. The part that got me was the alien home invasion, because this came out during a hypnotic regression, and it was very pronounced. If you find yourself suffering from nightmares and stuff like that, it might be something to look at. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, I thought you folks might enjoy hearing about this particular abduction, because I enjoyed researching it. You folks have a good day. God bless one and all.